Hi gun people, I just did a video on talking about for training, if it didn't document it, it didn't happen. My horse is out here like, dude, what are you doing out here? His little friend's on the other side, he might come around. Anyway, let me get to this video. How do you document if the cops are, if you're a cop, firefighter, government worker, etc. In this video, my head looks like I'm getting the whole damn thing in here. Let me zoom out here. Alright, so when I talk, I just did a crazy cop story about working for that dirty DA, that crooked Jeff Reisig, and I talked about if it didn't document it for training purposes, it didn't happen. Well, when you try to fight government or stand up against government, it's the same thing. If it's not documented, it's not true, you can't prove it. Even if it is documented, you still necessarily can't prove it, but it makes it harder for someone else to deny it. So, what's a good way to document, or what we call CYA in the military or in police work, fire, government, any work, CYA, cover your ass. There's always ways that you can do that. Now, it used to be before emails, it was a little bit more difficult. You had to rely on witnesses, you had to talk about it with other people. You could maybe type out something on a typewriter or make a little note in your notebook, and then that would be some sort of log. But when you're in government work, any written notes becomes somewhat of a business recognized, legalized, legitimized business records, because you made them in the course of your employment. Hi, buddy. So my horse just came by. The other one came by to visit his friend. So how do you do that? How do you cover your ass in government? Now, this is for any job or anything. If you feel that you're being compromised, or if somebody is trying to get you to do something that you don't want to do, but you don't want to get fired for saying no, I mean, obviously you have to draw the line somewhere. Is somebody going to get hurt, killed, injured, go to prison? You have to draw the line somewhere, but everyone is kind of, in their job or employment, is asked to do things by their boss or supervisor that they may not have a warm and fuzzy feeling about, or that it may go against their individual morals or beliefs. And I mean, in order to keep a job, make a living, you kind of got to suck it up sometime. I mean, you know, you got the damn liberals out here now crying they need their safe space, you can't talk to them, and I think now, my nephew was telling me in basic training in the military now, they have these little cards, or these little papers they can pull out, and it's like a timeout card, and the drill instructor can't yell at them or can't do anything, and they get to go 5 minutes to go sit in the corner and just relax and decompress because it's just too stressful if somebody's yelling at you. I mean, we're raising a damn country a bunch of pussies. But anyway, so how do you cover yourself so you end up getting screwed? And I always say, you know, so you end up not being the only one without a chair when the music stops, because it's very easy to get back to that corner in government work, because government's going to protect government always. Even if you work for government, when they can use you and keep you, they'll protect you because you're part of government. But if you go against government, if you whistleblow, if you say, no, I'm not going to be a part of this, waste, fraud, abuse, lying, pencil whipping, what we call, you know, fake documents, just writing stuff down that really didn't happen, just cover your ass. All those things in government, they can come back and bite you. And the way it works in police work, and I'm sure it works in other agencies, is once somebody gets you to compromise or bend the truth or lie or cover for them or not tell, once they get you in that web, it's very hard to break out, because then they're just going to build on top of it. You know, Reisig's philosophy, his management philosophy is, I only surround myself with people that I have dirt on so I can control them, and therefore I know they will never try to come after me on my dirt because they know I have dirt on them. So, and that kind of breeds in a crooked environment. That's why our system is so crooked now, because everybody's worried about covering their own ass, covering their job, and they're not worried about doing the right thing, being honest, and because there's really no benefit for being honest. You get stomped on. You get trashed if you're honest or try to stand up or try to protect public funds or be a fiduciary of taxpayer money. You're going to get stomped on because nobody in government wants to hear that. So how do you do that? What's a good way to do that? Well, I'm telling you from experience, no matter how good you do it, they're going to find a way around it to discredit, etc. But, I mean, for most people with a brain, it's going to be pretty clear. We can't say we agree with this guy, or we can't say that he was right, and we can't say that, but everyone knows. So here's some suggestions on how to cover your ass. Logs are great. Date and times. The longer you keep a log, the more valuable it is, because then it becomes a standard operating procedure, like a scheme and design in legal terms, is something that's done over and over, so you can kind of connect it to the person's kind of credibility, that it has credibility because they've always done it this way, and we can look back and see that it's a standard business course of action for him to keep a log in a notebook, to have a logbook. When we were in the military, or when we were training for instructors, anytime I went to a class, because I was an instructor for, impact weapon batons and weaponless defense and shooting, and then I taught at academy. Any school that I went to, when I would teach things, I had a training logbook, and I would make a note of all training I went to. And then when I needed to, 5-10 years later, go back and go, we need to figure out, you're going to testify as an expert, we need all your schools that you went to relating to use of force, to baton use, to using a firearm, to vehicle pursuit driving. We need everything. So I could go back through this book and just have a running log. Now with computers, you can just make your little log, type in every time you go to school, you're good to go, date, time, how long the course was, maybe what you know, or the title of the course, and then you've got a record of it. And then you can print it out, cut and paste. It's a lot easier now. So, but that's one way, is to keep a running log. Now the problem with keeping a running log is if you keep it on a government computer, your supervisor or somebody above him can have access to it. I mean, it's nothing for government to say, the boss to tell his IT guy, I want to see what he sent, I want to see all his emails he sent, and next thing you know he reads it and you've got a log in there and you put in here that he's a piece of shit and he was lying and he was trying to hide and he was trying to do this, and all of a sudden he finds it. Next thing you know, you're getting disciplined for, not zipping your pants up, from not washing your hands. Next thing you know, you've got all these documentation and you're getting fired. So keeping your logs and notes secret is a key. But with emails, which is a great tool, and it's still, again, when I was fighting Jeff Reisig and we were testifying, I showed him email. He testified he never said something. I showed him an email because I had a copy that I saved it to where he answered me, and the lawyer's like, is this your email? It looks like it. Well, is that your email address? Yeah. Is that your reply? Well, I don't know. I don't remember this reply. Well, reading it in front of you right now, you don't remember it? Now I have no recollection of it. So even though I had an email that I sent to him and he replied to me and I kept a copy and he testified I never said that, he still never admitted to saying it and said he didn't remember it. So, I mean, and the judge is sitting there, instead of saying, you know what, you're pretty much lying, the judge is sitting there like, well, he's an attorney and, that's not really proof. Just because you have an email, because somebody could have hacked into his email, somebody could have changed his email. So, it's very easy to prove. You go back in the log, all the emails are kept, and you pull out the original if that was the case. But they didn't even ask that. It was just kind of like, hey, he didn't admit it. He said he don't remember it. Move on. Why do you keep asking? Move on. He said he don't remember it. Move on. So even with emails, it doesn't help. But multiple emails, multiple sendings, multiple people, multiple copies will help you. So some of the ways that I used to document things when I knew that it didn't pass a smell test and I was like, this can come back bite me in the ass, is one, I would get copies of documents that it was concerned. When I was fighting Reisig on this hiding evidence, they tried to destroy the document that we sent on a test that was done out the range. They tried to hide and destroy the document. So they asked for the original and then it suddenly got lost. Well, they didn't know. As soon as this happened, I was like, this don't pass smell test. I'm making copies of this. So I had my own copy at home. And the only one that knew was the lieutenant who had the original. So when they came in and got the original for him, they're like, hey, we got the original. Nobody has a copy. We don't have to discover it. We don't have to do anything. Well, all of a sudden, I show up with a copy of it, and they're like, oh, shit. Now we got to backtrack. So they had to change their plan. So having copies of documents is very important. Emailing with replies is good. Emailing and CCing yourself to a private account. You know, when you email somebody, you can either CC, which is the old carbon copy. They just put CC in their carbon copy. And then they have BCC, which is blind carbon copy. And the BCC, you can send that to your private email. It won't show up. Nobody knows that you send it. And now you have a Yahoo, Hotmail, Gmail, whatever AOL account that you sent a copy, so you have another independent record that not only did you send it, but it went here, so it must have went to him, or it must have went to her, or it must have replied. So BCCing yourself to another email is a good way to make another documented trail on how to cover your ass on keeping a log, so people later, if there is an investigation, if you do get fired, if something happens, you can go back and say, well, I sent this. I mean, I had a complete, in my private email, I had a complete folder on my employment. So anything that I thought was particular, I always blind CC'd myself to that thing. It was on a Yahoo account. They would have had to get a search warrant to go get it. And, you know, by that time, if they were getting a search warrant, I knew my shit was weak, so I'd already made copies, pulled it off, and I had it in a separate folder. So BCCing is good. The other way is to nonchalantly corroborate what you're saying in your notes. So if I'm making a log that on this date, I was told not to document deficiencies in this area, and I think it's wrong. So I put that in my logbook or my log file, and now I have that document. Well, to back that document up, I would send an email to someone else and ask their opinion about that on the same date. So I have this log on this date, and now I have this email to where I'm sending another investigator or my supervisor, hey man, on this thing about, you know, not documenting, am I going to get in trouble, or can they come back on me because I didn't document it when someone else does something? And then he replies, no, don't worry about it. Or even if he doesn't reply, I now have corroborating dates and times where I sent an email in regards that corroborates my log. So that helps you if they try to come down and say, hey, this didn't happen. Oh, he's lying. He never did that. I never got. I mean, he can deny getting an email. He can deny reading it, but to the reasonable person, it'll be like, why did this guy make a log, and why did he send this email if this really didn't happen? I mean, that seems like an awful lot of effort. And he did this 6 months ago, and he did it on this incident, and he did it on that incident, and he did it on that incident. Is this guy really just making this up? And that was their theory. I just made this all up. I was just, you know, none of this ever happened. Everything was great, and they don't know why I accused him, but whatever. I just went rogue. So, again, that's how you cover it. Another way is to send emails or talk to somebody about it. Have them review it. I had a buddy of mine that I sent this to in another agency and went, dude, man, they're trying to hide evidence. I got all this shit. I don't want to. I know if I whistleblow on this, they're going to freaking try and fire me. What do you think? What kind of input? And he replied back, dude, leave it alone, man. All the DAs are dirty. They do it all the time. Don't jump on your sword. They're going to crush you. Don't do it. So now I have that email from another investigator who was called to testify for me, who said all this, and who came in when he's testifying. He goes, all I remember is, you know, me and Rick's been friends for a long time. We rode motorcycles. We'd go snow skiing, water skiing. I mean, we were long-time buds. When he sent me this, I could tell he was stressed, and he goes, I always remember he said, you know, for evil to exist, all it takes is good men to do nothing. And I remember him saying that, and it stuck with me because he said, I just ain't standing by for this. I'm drawing the line. This is bullshit. Even though he advised me, he goes, I told him not to. I told him we'd be where we are today. They'd be trying to fire him if he did this. And now we're here. So, I mean, but that was, again, another corroboration from another source that kind of corroborates. It doesn't necessarily make everything I said was true. It doesn't mean that they can prove that this guy was lying and everything. Hi, buddy, what are you doing? My horse coming over here saying, dude, give me something to eat. So that's another great way to corroborate. Anytime you talk, if you call somebody, so I have my log, I've sent emails. Now I'm going to call somebody and go, hey man, I just want to talk to you about this. I'm going to go on my log and my history and I'm going to search case law on hiding evidence. And when that case law comes up, I'm going to print that. And now I'm going to attach that to the log and say, not only did I tell him, not only did I talk to my supervisor, not only was I in a dilemma that I emailed my partner from another agency that we used to work together, I printed out, here's the date that I printed out, information on laws and how I was in a freaking hard situation knowing that they were hiding evidence and I didn't do anything. So now I had that information. So it was very clear they tried to hide it, but their excuse later was, well, we didn't really try to hide it. I don't know why he's making all this up. We gave it to the defense. They can't find it. So, and again, by making documentation, you cover your ass, but by them not having documentation, they cover theirs. So we call that a clue. When you start getting called in and asked to do these things and nothing's done in writing. When you get called in by yourself, there was one incident where this kind of was coming ahead and he knew I was upset and I was going to do something. He wanted to have a conversation with me and I said, I want my supervisor in on this conversation so neither of us can say, oh, you don't need that, I want to see you alone, your supervisor can't be in here. Flat out said no. I had that email. And when we were testifying and in court and everything, it was like, well, why couldn't he have a supervisor? My attorney asked. Well, because he wasn't needed and I didn't want him in there. I wanted to talk to him. And that was my call and I'm the DA and I can do what the hell I want. So, I mean, even though you try these different things, there's still ways for government, the people in charge, they know how to cover their ass. They know how to not have witnesses. They know how to say things verbally or orally to you that it's not documented. They know how to put buffers between them so they can have plausible deniability and not say it themselves. So they'll call in one of their Weasley lieutenant or chiefs and go, hey, I don't want this getting out. And the people that are close to him are already dirty, so they're not going to turn on him, and he knows this. So he has them do their dirty work and go, hey, you need to make sure that he knows that he better not do this. So then he would go to my lieutenant and go, hey, verbally, nothing written, you need to talk to Gore and make sure he needs to keep his mouth shut about this. And then my lieutenant would come to me and it would be like, okay, so now we have 4 layers. So when we went back and tried to do this, my lieutenant goes, yeah, the chief called me and he told me that and I went and told him. And I said my lieutenant told me that. And I said I talked to him. The chief got in there and go, I never said that. I don't remember talking to him. Because he's protecting his job with the DA. The DA gets on there and goes, I never told the chief to do that. I don't believe the chief would do that. I wouldn't have him as my chief if I thought he would do that. So now you got the 2 top guys saying, hey, we didn't do that. These 2 lower guys for somehow are just making this up and lying. Again, that's where your log comes in, your log file, your email file, your phone records on who you called and why you called them on that day. Anything that you can print out that corroborates and you keep in a folder. And I mean, as cops, we're always trying to put together a case, so we're pretty meticulous. If you're an investigator or detective and you're working a case, you know how important it is to keep a log on where you're doing, where you're going, where this lead takes you, what's next, and where it goes. Because when you get into court, they're going to ask you, the defense is going to be asking you a question, well, why did you go here and why did you talk to that person? And why? And you're going to have to go back and backtrack. Well, on this date I interviewed this person and he said this guy's name. And then I interviewed this person on this date and he mentioned this guy's name. And when I ran him, I noticed he was on probation, so I did a probation search. When I did a probation search, I saw this gang paraphernalia, which led me to believe that he was involved in this. And I talked to someone else that said, yeah, that's what the guy was wearing when he committed the crime. So all of that becomes important. So as a cop, it's kind of second nature if you've done investigations to do this. But as a regular employee, I don't know if people think about that. So if you're in government, again, government's always going to protect itself. And if you want to protect your job and be able to fight in case you get accused or you get caught up in this crap. Now remember, anytime you do things like this and you start making a log, you're going to have to justify when you pull this log out why you didn't do more. Because that was the big thing. They kept telling me and the lieutenant, why didn't you guys do something more? Why did you go straight to the Attorney General? We go, we didn't go straight to the Attorney General. We talked to our supervisor, we talked to other attorneys, we talked to supervising attorneys, and we talked to the DA. So we talked to all these people and everybody just ignored us and they still hid the evidence. So that's why we end up going to the Attorney General and taking it out, because they were going after chain of command. And in the military, police, fire, there's a chain of command. And if you go over that chain of command and you jump it, they can get you for policy and fire you on that alone. So they were trying to say we violated policy by not going to them. Even though we went to numerous people in numerous times, there was no documentation. We didn't email. And if we did email, our email was never answered. And guess who the IT guy works for that does all the emails? The guy that's trying to tell us to hide evidence. So if he calls him and says, hey man, this came in my file. He had his email set up. How was it? He could delete, or people could, there was something he had special done to his email. And I can't remember what it does, but his email is not like everyone else's as far as read, receipt. You know how you can set up your email, maybe if you haven't used Outlook. And when we use Outlook and we use official emails, you can set up to where you know when the person reads it. And then that person can block it and say, I don't want to send a receipt on when I read it. So he can actually read his emails without me ever getting a read receipt, because I would try and send a read receipt when I sent it. And then I would know it would say, read on this date and time. And then I would print that out. But if he didn't open it and he had it set up to where he could review it and not show that it read, I couldn't prove he ever read it, so he would say, plausible deniability. I don't remember. I have no recollection. I didn't read it. Prove it. I mean, it's very, very difficult to fight the government when they have all the resources. So if you find yourself in one of these things, and if you're in a whistleblower situation, be very, very careful who you talk to, who's trying to make points. You say it to the wrong person, they're going to go and tell. Because when I turned in my complaint to the AG, one of the guys at the AG knew one of the attorneys that worked there, called him and said, hey, this guy just turned into your DA, you better give him a heads up. He went, and that's when they tried to come after us before it got an investigation started, so they could start putting their things together. And then it was all about, well, let's make it political. Let's say he doesn't like me. Let's say it's this. Let's say he's gone rogue. So you know, when you tell somebody, you know, you got to be careful, because it'll come back and bite you in the ass too. So pick your friends and your enemies, and you know who your friend is, know who's going to talk, but you got to create this web of cooperation with emails and phone calls and logs and who I'm emailing and who answered it, and all of that is going to cooperate and help you in any defense when you start fighting for your job, or if you have an attorney that represents you, he's going to need all that. It makes it a really easy case to where they can't just stomp over you and railroad over you, because they're like, shit, you know, we were just going to deny everything, but damn, he's got this and he's got that and he's got that, and man, now it's going to look like we're lying. Well, you know what? Let's just not admit it, and we don't remember anything, and he's got to prove we're lying, which you can't do. I mean, unless I get him on audio tape, even on audio tape, he would say, I don't remember that conversation. Yeah, I might have said that, but you know, there was probably some context before, or maybe we had a conversation before or after, but I don't remember that conversation. I don't know why I would say that. Prove it. Prove what I meant when I said what I said, because that's what lawyers do. So hopefully that gives you a little better idea on how to cover your butt, how to document, keep that log, kind of set up your own case file if you find yourself in the middle of some sort of corruption, lying, stealing, waste, something that you want to do something about. Cover your tracks, because when the government pulls out the big guns, man, their guns are tough to fight. But it was a good fight, I'll tell you that. Hi, buddy! What are you doing? You were bugging Dad when he was filming. You're going to be in big trouble. You were bugging me, weren't you? You're a bad boy. All right, we'll end it there. I know, you're a good boy.